I agree with Kate, part 2. In this video, I'm going to state my personal agreement with something that Kate Forbes has been accused of believing, and I think it is something that she believes. I'm not sure she's actually said publicly that she believes it. I think she might even have said the opposite, but in any case, I'm going to defend what she's been accused of believing. The accusation has been made by the Greens that Kate Forbes believes that having children outside of marriage is wrong. Now, I don't think anyone really would put things like that. I mean, the children outside of marriage, that's like a symptom. But I think the belief that they're getting at is having sex outside of marriage is wrong. Now, again, this is an important issue. And Uncle Tom, Cobby and all, is saying, oh, please, shouldn't pick on Kate, stop criticising Kate for views. But what virtually no one seems to do is to say, I agree with her. This is why I think this opinion is true. And I think it's important that someone does that. And that's what I'm going to do again in this video. Because what the Greens want to do, they want to suppress these opinions. They want to make it so that anyone who holds such views is eliminated from public life. They can't just agree to disagree. These people have got to be basically cut out of politics completely. So the more people that state agreement, the safer we are. Safety in numbers. Now in this video, again, please distinguish between my personal opinions and the policies of the Scottish Family Party, which I'm going to make absolutely clear which is which in this video. Now again, when it comes to thinking about something, is it right or wrong, there are three things to consider. I consider my intuition, my conscience. I consider reason, I think it through, look at the consequences, etc. And I think revelation. Now on this issue, I'm going to start with the last one, revelation. Well, I'm a Christian and the Bible's teaching on this is very clear. The church's teaching through the ages and all denominations has been very clear. Now, the church's teaching is severely out of step with modern culture. But again, there's really no ambiguity in it all. Sex is for marriage between a man and a woman. That is the standard Christian teaching throughout the world, I would say. Right, moving on. Intuition, conscience. What does my conscience tell me? My conscience tells me that sex outside of marriage is not right. So nothing more to say about that. I mean, that's just that. Right, the next one, reason. Now, using our reason, thinking it through, can't really reach moral judgments. You have to start with intuitions. But it can show why the moral standards make sense. I think that's the case with marriage and sex. And I think my reason shows me that the traditional Christian understanding is good for kids, good for adults, and good for wider society. Because the institution of marriage is a social institution, what it's supposed to do is maximize the probability of mum, dad, and their own children being brought up in a stable family to everybody's benefit. And that's a really, really important thing. So what marriage does is it encapsulates, if you like, family life with commitment, a publicly made commitment that is lifelong and sexually exclusive, and also has some legal element as well. The legal element is very, very diluted these days, but there is some legal element to it as well. Now, the idea of saving sex until marriage, why would that be? Well, because I think if the person's someone you're not ready to commit to lifelong publicly, or they won't commit to you on a lifelong public basis, then the issue there, if you do have sex, let's call sex what it is, sex is the baby making thing, then babies might be brought into the world, children might be brought into the world, into a setup that might not be as stable as it might otherwise be. So the chance of children being brought up in an unstable environment is increased by sex before total commitment, in other words, sex before marriage. Another important aspect here as well is that sexual intercourse has a bonding effect. Again, it can be talk about this in terms of chemicals, I won't bother with that, but it has a bonding effect. It brings people together and it strengthens their relationship. And that bonding effect works best first time. So the first time a man and woman have sex, if they haven't had sex with anyone else, then that bonding effect will be at its most effective and is most likely to produce a stable relationship in the future. As the man or the woman have sex with more different partners, then the effectiveness of this bonding effect is diminished. So the idea that you save sex until marriage means that the strongest bonding effect, most effective bonding effect from sex takes place with the person that is most important to bond with, the person who's to be the life partner to bring up a family together. Now, some people might reply and say, oh, but we're very committed to each other. We just haven't done it. We haven't had a public ceremony, but we're very, very committed. Okay, I think the public ceremony is still very important because expressing that commitment before other people, I think, is a powerful thing. But even if that couple is as committed as a married couple, there's still the fact that that sets an example to other people. Other people will be likely to follow that example, and the overall net effect in society is people will enter into such relationships with a lower level of commitment. What marriage does, well, this is one of the many ways of explaining it, is it ties together three things into a single package. And those three things are commitment, total lifelong public exclusive commitment, domesticity, living together, and sex. And it says these three things go together, they're a package, and it's called marriage. Whereas the culture at the moment is that these things can be separated. You can have sex with someone, you can move in with them, whatever order, whenever you like. Commitment, well, that can come in stages or whatever level. You maybe get married at some point or not. But I think when those things are separated, then the relationship becomes weaker. Because if the man, for example, thinks, well, I can get sex somewhere else, then the whole package is weakened. Another way of looking at marriage is it makes men behave the way women want them to. That's a real generalization, but it's largely true as well. Because in many cases, men will be more happy, they're more after the sex bit, maybe not so keen on the commitment and domesticity bit, whereas women are often very keen on domesticity commitment. They want a man to be around while they're bringing up the children. So what marriage does is it sort of puts pressure, puts structure there, so that men behave the way women want them to and need them to, and being fathers to their children. Now, people are complicated. Things don't always work out for a whole host of reasons. But in general, a strong culture of marriage leads to a strong culture of stable family life, and that is to everyone's benefit. Right, that was sort of personal opinion there mainly, but let's look at it from the Scottish Family Party point of view. Now, I think just the evidence is clear that marriage is a good in terms of stable relationships, therefore it's a good for society. Now, in society, a lot of what goes on in the Scottish Parliament, for example, the assumption is we've got a problem. Some people in society, they're in a mess in one way or another. They need help. Something's gone wrong. So obviously, what do we need to do? We need to find some money to pay some professionals to go and sort it out. And this is an endless spiral. We just want more and more money, more and more people to help sort out society's problems. Well, I think that just can't go on indefinitely. Whereas what we're saying is prevention's better than cure. I think a lot of very serious problems in Scotland that are blighting individuals' lives, not the society as a whole, but individuals, could be alleviated by enhancing the degree of stable family life. And that doesn't cost a huge amount of money. We're talking about a culture change rather than anything that's hugely expensive. Now, people of a liberal political persuasion often cry foul at this point. They say you can't say that because it's judgmental. You can't suggest that one choice is better than another choice. You've been offensive to various people, etc. Now, the people who are saying that, they're often the people who are absolutely on the front foot to tell you everything about how you should live your life. What you should eat, how you should exercise, where you should live, how far you should travel, where you should go for your holiday. I mean, everything. They'll advise you about every possible aspect of your life. But then when it comes to one of the really core, most important aspects, not just for the individual, but for others as well, they think you're not allowed to go there. So as the Scottish Family, part of our policy is to promote a culture of marriage. Now, how do we do that? I think in schools, children should be taught about the philosophy of marriage. This is what it is. This is what it's intended to do. And they should also be taught about the facts of marriage in terms of these are the outcomes. These are the percentage of couples who are together 5 years after having a child if they don't get married, or if they do get married, for example. And I think that's very valuable information for children. I find generally you can talk about these statistics and people often throw their arms up and say, what nonsense, how could that possibly be true? But these are some of the best attested facts in the whole of social science. I mean, the evidence is absolutely, utterly overwhelming on that front. Right, how else would we promote a culture of marriage? I've said about in school. Another way is through the tax and benefit system. Currently, marriage can actually be penalised, particularly in the benefit system, and it's not particularly incentivised in the tax system either. Whereas we would make it so that marriage was incentivised and recognised in both the tax system and the benefit system. So in other words, there's an incentive for choices that are going to tend to lead to stable family life. Now, in terms of the tax system, a transferable tax allowance is a core part of our policy there. And the third way we would promote marriage is cultural leadership. In other words, by talking about it, which is what I'm doing in this video. So again, in the Scottish Parliament, there tends to be an assumption that the way you tackle every issue is you either spend money or you pass a law. That's what you've got to do. That's what parliaments do. The government spends the money, the parliament passes law. Well, I would say there's more to it than that. Politicians have got a public platform and they can use that to promote cultural change within a society. And that's what we would do in the Scottish Family Party. We try and do it from our position now. And as elected members of the Scottish Parliament, for example, we would use that platform to talk about marriage, to promote events about marriage, to get marriage talked about in the media, etc., etc. Because politics, it's not all about money, it's not all about making laws, it's not all about picking up the pieces when things have gone wrong. It's about promoting a culture that's going to lead to a flourishing nation. That's why promoting marriage is absolutely central to the Scottish Family Party's policies. Now, a lot of people at the moment, their mindset seems to be, we've just got to get the SNP out. Doesn't matter what else, we've got to get the SNP out. Whereas we would say, can we not aim for something more positive than that? Can we not aim to produce a flourishing nation where people are fulfilling their potential and just living the lives they want to, free of all sorts of problems that are assailing people at the moment? Well, that's our vision. And if you want to help us to achieve that, do join the Scottish Family Party or become a regular donor. There is a link below. And thanks for watching.